Happy Sabbath, everyone. Happy Sabbath, everyone. I am Kwame Thomas, and today we'll be looking at choices and how we can manifest our choices from merely just being a choice to success. Now, we understand that choices are very important in how we go about our daily business. And as a matter of fact, we can go as far as to say that in the beginning, we make our choices, but in the end, our choices make us. So we are a product of our choices. And today we'll be having a fulsome discussion on that. And I am joined on set by a number of individuals, capable individuals. So just for an instant, let me introduce my guest of panelists. I have with me Dr. Judith Liva Thomas, a consultant psychiatrist, Mrs. Marlene Pottinger Giles, a counseling psychologist, Mrs. Yvonne McClymont Grant, specialist practitioner, community mental health, Dr. Jerome Stern, general practitioner, and Elder Cecile Cooper, who is a success and life skill coach. As I've stated earlier, I am Kwame Thomas, one of your local leaders in the Andrews Memorial District of Churches. Now, before I pray, just to give you an idea as to how we're going to proceed, we will be looking briefly at factors that influence choices, the choices that we make, the unconscious things that make people make certain choices. And we'll be looking at a number of things that is not limited to the power of advertising on choices front, and how to convert choices to success. So without further ado, I will pray and then I'll have a brief panel discussion. Well, before the panel discussion, we'll have two presentations. One by Sister Yvonne McClymont Grant, followed by Elder Cecile Cooper, and then we'll have a discussion. So I'm going to invite you now, as soon as we're finished praying, that you can just touch the like button and touch the subscribe button, and feel free to post your comments, your queries, and your concerns in the YouTube chat. We will see them and I'll throw them to the panelists so that we can have a fulsome discussion. So let us pray. Heavenly Father, as I come before your presence, I just want to thank you for yet another opportunity to come before your people. We pray for the program that we have ahead and the presenters, and we pray for us to get a clear understanding as to the things that are involved in making choices, and not just making choices, dear Father, but making good choices, choices that please you, and choices that at the end of the day will show us to be successful in your eyes, dear Father. Continue to tarry with us and bless us to this end. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. So again, just a brief recap. We are going to be having our first presentation by Mrs. Yvonne McClymont Grant, followed by one by Cecile Cooper, and then we'll have our panel discussion. So feel free at any point in time to post your queries, your comments, and your concerns in the YouTube chat.
Thank you, Elder. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how to teach your child to make choices. Next slide. An act of choices as an act of choosing between two possibilities. See the little baby there? Next one there. So why would I want to talk about you teaching a child how to make good choices? I want you to recognize that this is very, very important, and to help the child become self-disciplined, help the child to be understanding and responsible. The child must become skilled in making positive, appropriate, and difficult choices. They will need to have an understanding of their own, his or her own needs. There is internal discipline, organization, and how to prioritize. The child will also develop a sense of self-control. And what will happen is that the outcome is that you will have less problems with your child later on. Next one. So why? It helps to build self-respect, respect in general. It helps to strengthen community, encourage cooperation, and the child will develop problem-solving skills. Next one. So, how and when? And I say, start early before the child reaches 2 years old. We've all heard about the terrible twos, so don't wait until 2 years old. So you teach by example. You must set boundaries. Communicate, communicate, communicate. Get to know your child. Keep it very simple. And as they progress, you make the choices age appropriate. Next one. You must make it fun. Children learn a lot by play. You must make it interesting by relating what you're teaching. You see, we have the big how in different colors. You're teaching them colors, but teach them how to apply the knowledge. And you can use their clothes, how they dress, not just colors for on a paper. Make it very practical. You have to be very creative and bring out that sort of creativity in your child. So the more you make it interesting, is the better they will learn. We must teach by a lot of encouragement. Children do well, even adults do well with encouragement, and also praise them, praise them. Sometimes we're too quick to scold, but we need to add a lot of praises because that is encouraging. Next one. So what if you started late? It's never too late. You can always try and redeem yourself. It's better to start early. However, if you've started late, don't be angry with yourself. Just start to work on it as soon as possible. What if the child does not like your choice? What if the child does not like the choice they make? If they don't like your choice, then you will have to just wheel and come again and try to learn from that experience. And if the child does not like their own choice, then it's a wonderful time to begin to teach them about consequences. When you're teaching your child, you have to realize that about foods and types of foods and things like that, realize that their health is your responsibility. So you have to do it in a wise way and in a way that the child can relate to it. And what if you get it right? Then we got to give God all the glory and we give him all the praise because he is able at whatever stage we are, but as long as we make it a priority to teach our children and start early. If not, always make every effort to teach them how to make choices. And that's the end of my presentation.
All right. I will continue. All right, could you cease sharing so that I will continue with the whole idea of choices for the young adults, people of all ages, and I will just illustrate. All right, so within the context of our community as a body of Christ, we have, I can start off right away to say we have a decided edge. We have a particular edge over the secular world in terms of making our choices. And so to start, the best guarantee for success, because I will not only be sharing some steps for effective choosing and choices, and as we navigate those choices, but also looking at patterns of behavior that could lead to success and just sharing some steps that can be employed in our everyday lives for success. But to begin, in terms of the foundation, is that we want to choose to believe in God's knowledge of us through his word, because God knows us, he made us. Then he knows what's best for us. Choose to align our plans with the plans God has for us, and choose to trust and commit all of our plans to him, and choose to believe how God sees us. He sees us as his masterpiece, and to allow God to lead and light our path, and then to commit that he will strengthen our path. And so we look at how the word itself, Jesus is the living word, the word itself discovers our condition. Hebrews 4:12, for the word is living and powerful and sharper than any two-edged sword, piercing the division of the soul, that's the spiritual, and the joints and the marrow, the physical, and is a discerner of our thoughts and intents, or emotional and mental. And this is these are areas where we make decisions and choices all the while. So as Jesus is masterpiece, we are created in Jesus Christ for good works, which God prepared beforehand that we should walk in them. The plans that God has for us are plans to prosper us and not to harm us, and to give us hope and a future. Now, the reason why it's so important to start with the foundation of God's word, that if we believe these, we're going to get contrary suggestions from the enemy, from others, from contrary voices. But if we believe this, when we are going through tough times of choices, then we can anchor on the word of God. And so trust your choices to him. As we see in Psalm 37, commit everything you do to the Lord and trust him, and he will help you. Because in Psalm 3, Proverbs 3, 5-7, a well-known scripture, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on our own understanding. In all our ways, acknowledge him and he will direct our paths. So just in terms of the practical, spaces that we go through in making choices, we want to imagine yourself 1 year in the future, or at the end. Begin with the end in mind. What's the vision for the future? What is it that you're trying to create in any sphere that you're developing and setting your goals? Begin with the end in mind. That's the first thing. So you can see what success looks like when you get to the end of the journey. Write down your goals. The power of writing your goals down cannot be underestimated. There are ways to write it down, to be specific in terms of time, why you want to achieve this goal, and speak it into being in terms of the present tense. They say all things are created twice, because you visualize what you're after, and then you take the steps to bring that into being by God's grace. So writing it down is important. And you can see you break down your dreams into plans, into action items, and so write it down is important. 3, identify and weigh your alternatives. You want to weigh your alternatives based on what's important. Is it that you want to do things fast, or you want to do them right? These are options that are always, you're having to weigh the alternatives there. Figure out what you know and don't know, because out of all possible knowledge, there's what you know your name. What you know you don't know. Many of us are not airplane pilots, so we know that we don't know how to fly a plane. But there's a whole sphere that keeps developing as we discover more and more of the wider possibility of knowledge. What you know you don't know. But God, thank God, we trust a God who knows the unknown, because he is the God of all knowledge. And so here, as you're looking at your choices, stuff you love to do, stuff you're good at, and stuff somebody will pay you to do. And in the intersect of that, you see, that's the sweet spot, because you're getting paid or compensated to do something you love to do, and you're great at doing that. So that's the kind of inquiry that you want to do when you're making your choices. Step away from the situation. I just put Luke 5:16, because in the early in the morning, even Jesus himself, as a role model, step away from the situation and retreated to pray. And sometimes that's what we need to do. So the power of stepping away, because when things are intense, and as you can see in the illustration there, everything is likely to have a knock-on burning effect. And sometimes just stepping away from a hard situation doesn't really mean running away, but it's not just sometimes allows you to think and clear your head and get a better option in terms of choices. The other thing is to learn your mistakes. Learn from your mistakes. Learn from your mistakes. Forget the mistake, but remember the lesson. That's an important thing. So learning from your mistake. A mistake is only a mistake if you don't learn from it, because these can be life lessons where you build on. If you don't learn from your mistakes, then they become regrets, or so it's important we learn from mistakes. Number 7, seek out feedback. Now, the Bible is replete with the whole business of getting wise counsel and ensuring that in the abundance of counsel there is wisdom and so on. So we can either have a fixed mindset, meaning that we already know this is, I can't do this, whether or not you're giving yourself negative self-talk or positive self-talk, but you have a fixed mindset as opposed to a growth mindset. You might be open to learning is this the best way? Get trusted feedback. Have someone who you know has your best interest at heart and establish this person as your accountability partner. Then the next thing is to look at the long-term and short-term consequences of these steps you're making. And importantly, look at the steps. Once you've determined what your wildly important goal is, or your ultimate goal, what is it you're trying to do in terms of these choices you're making, life choices? What are the steps that lead to success? And you define those steps and so on. And I will show you further on very quickly why this is important to decide on what steps that you can influence and that you know will lead to success you should take. Then it's important also to gather, analyze, depending on the goal or the choice that you're making, or the goal that you're going after. Gather and analyze data, because sometimes only trust in your gut instinct can get you in trouble. So it's helpful to consult someone who has been on this path before, somebody who was experienced in a particular area of choice, where you're breaking new ground, an expert in the area of interest. Your parents are usually for the most part, your parents are trusted partners, mentors, and coaches. Gather the data, and it's not a whole complex thing, very simple, but then it can help to inform better choices. And the last thing I would say here, before we just look very quickly at how to be successful in these choices, is really to ensure that you identify your values and stay true to them. It is not hard to make decisions once you know what your values are. The value of values, right? This is very important. Our personal core values are there to guide behavior and choice. Get them right, and you will be swift and focused in your decision making with clear direction. But get them wrong or leave them ambiguous, and you'll constantly wonder how you got into this mess. So quickly now, I will just share very quickly 4 steps that you can use. This is just really a well-researched method of developing your goals, pursuing goals with a high phenomenal degree of success. And when we put our Lord in front of it, then we have an even bigger formula. So this is really, Sister Daria really wanted us to share with you this framework, the 4 disciplines of execution. And really what it says is, number 1, the first discipline is to focus on what is wildly important. So therefore, you're going to distill what is important and break that down. What does the picture of success look like in the end? Then you want to, the next one is act on the lead measures, which is discipline 2. then keep a compelling scorecard, and then create a cadence of accountability. Now I'm going to break that down into how we can apply them personally. The first one is basically the more you do, the less you would accomplish. So ensure that you focus in, really zero in, and don't try to do too many things at once. Once you have a clear picture of your priority goals, what are important in terms of your choices. We're talking about life choices. And then you establish what you call your personal wigs. These are wildly important for me, depending on every stage of my life, whether it's a health goal, a job goal, a relational goal, whatever it is, those you would put as personal. And failure, there should be such that anything that competes with it will be really throwing you off, because if you don't accomplish this, you could even find that there are other things in life that you do accomplish are inconsequential. So act on the lead measure is number 2. Earlier in the steps that I was showing, we said you need to now figure out if your goal is to get to Montego Bay to use a thing, what are the points along the way that you ought to be passing to get to that goal. So these are the lead measures, are the steps that you can take towards getting those wigs accomplished. And this is the formula for success here. You act on the lead measures, because these are the things that should be influenceable. So whatever your plans and goals you're pursuing, your progress and success will be based on 2 kinds of things. That's a lag, which is the wildly important goals, and then the lead. And the lag measures are tracking if you're getting through with what you set out to do in the long run, over time and ultimately. But the lead are the most high impact things you could do. So these are things that you already worked out that are predictive for you to achieve the goal, meaning those are the steps that will take you there. And then the steps are steps that you can do something about. So acting on this is really the secret to effective execution and success. Now, discipline 3 is keep a compelling scorecard. This is a very important thing. Persons really play differently when they are keeping score. If somebody is doing a little ping pong, if you notice, if you're in a tennis court and you're just doing a little ping pong, joking around, it's a different thing when somebody say, all right, let's go, we're gonna keep score now. It's a whole different mindset that kicks in. And it's the same thing, once you're keeping score, tracking your results, it will make a difference in terms of this. And this one is the discipline of engagement. Engaging in yourself is the principle of highest performance always come from people who are emotionally invested in what they're doing. And the highest level of engagement comes from knowing the score. That is, if you're winning or losing at what you're doing. This requires you to create for yourself a simple but compelling scorecard. The fourth and last is to create a rhythm of accountability. A cadence is what this is called officially, but the whole idea is to have the rhythm and the regularity and an accountability partner. And this is, in this whole framework, is where execution really happens. The first 3 disciplines is considered to set the game up, but this fourth one is where, and you can tell, if there's no accountability, the thing can just fizzle out in time. So the goal naturally disintegrates. And so the idea is to have somebody, a trusted accountability partner. And here I have indicated it could be a friend, a parent, a sibling, a mentor, a coach, a best friend, somebody who in that area has your interest at heart and will hold you accountable and allow you to hold yourselves accountable. Together with your accountability partner, you ask yourself the question along the path, what are the 1 or 2 most important things that I can do towards my choices, my goals, my life goals over the next whatever period, say a week or whatever. And then you make commitments and discuss those in the coming weeks. And that is sort of a framework. If every time you have a goal, you put it there, say what you're up to, what will get you there, keep score, keep a track on it, and then in the end, have someone to help you to keep accountable. Those are 4 things that will really lead to phenomenal success and can be applied to our lives. But we have more. We have that Jesus is our ultimate role model, and he has indicated that his word is a lamp unto our feet and a light unto our path. And therefore, the Lord will light our path and, be a lamp to lead those lead steps that we're taking. We can get the accompaniment of the sovereign of the universe in actually having this done. And so God, he actually wanted us to prosper and be in good health. So knowing that God desires our good, as we said in 3 John 2, beloved, I pray that you may prosper and be in health. And this is full, wholesome health in every way, social, emotional, mental. And we only need to look in God's church, and you set enough examples in the Bible and even right here in church to show that when we make certain choices and trust in him, he will establish our plans. And so I leave you with Proverbs 16:3. Commit to the Lord whatever you do, and he will establish your plans.
Happy Sabbath, everyone. My name is Emma Allen. Thank you for joining today's invite program by the Health Ministry Department. After creating humankind, God showed them the abundance of delicious and nutritious food available to them. He wanted them to have good health. Today, he wants us to have good health too. This year, I am choosing to drink more water, less juice, eat my fruits and vegetables, and spend more time enjoying the outdoors. Our health is precious treasure. I hope you will join me in making the best health choices ever. Bye, everyone!
Hi everyone, I hope you're doing okay. My name is Acer Gibbs, and today I'll be answering a very important question, namely, what better health choices will you be making this year? Brothers and sisters, when that question was asked, I truly had to look into myself for the answers, and now I've found it. Step 1, I'll start practicing the 8 laws of health, namely nutrition, exercise, water, sunshine, temperance, air, rest, and the last T stands for trusting God. Brothers and sisters, these are the natural remedies that the Lord has provided for us. So when we practice the 8 laws of health, I know that I can be more healthier. So step 1, I'll start practicing the 8 laws of health. Step 2, I'll start drinking more water. To be honest, brothers and sisters, a lot of times I've gone to school with my bottle full, and when I come back home, it's still full. And that's not healthy. Sometimes I don't even drink water throughout the entire day, which is not good. This year, I am pledging that I will start drinking more water, as it will help me in my bowel movement, it will prevent me from being dehydrated, it will flush my body system, and it will prevent constipation. Thirdly, brothers and sisters, I'll start eating more fruits and vegetables. You know that when you eat your fruits and vegetables, you get the right nutrients and the vitamins that are needed for the body. For example, vitamin A, vitamin C, and we have some minerals such as zinc and iodine. I will ensure that I start eating my fruits and vegetables to obtain these nutrients and vitamins that are required in order for my body to be healthy. Last but not least, brothers and sisters, I'll start eating a balanced diet. And you might be asking, Asa, what is a balanced diet? I'm glad you asked. A balanced diet is a diet that consists of food from all of the food groups taken in its right proportion. I will start eating a balanced diet, brothers and sisters, as when I do this, I'll be ensuring that I get the right proportion from all the food groups in order for me to be healthy. For example, I'll get adequate amount of food from the proteins, the carbohydrates, the fats, and you can continue naming them. When I do this, brothers and sisters, it will prevent deficiencies from happening in my body, and it will ensure that my body is getting all the right nutrients and vitamins that it needs in order to function properly. These are the new changes that I will be making this year, and I implore you, please make the same. Thank you for listening.
Right. I just want to say thanks for the two first presenters. A number of things came to mind when I started looking at the presentations that were as they were being made. But what was stood out for me as it relates to the first presentation by Mrs. McClymont Grant, you stated something about starting to reinforce the idea of decision making and so on with the children from they are 2, start as early as possible. But for most of us, well, not most, but a good number of us, we understand or we like to talk to children with the goo goo gaga, and I don't think we treat them like they're humans who are capable of understanding what we're saying. So we say, ooh, 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 and that's how we talk to them. So is it that you're implying that something like that shouldn't actually take place? We shouldn't do that goo goo gaga talk? First question.
I think why I really chose to talk about the child is simply because this is what goes on. And then if you have the small children and you start using words to them and even sentences, you'll be surprised to know that when they really start to talk, they will start talking in sentences using the words. So, and sometimes we think it's funny, but we are not actually teaching them the way they should be taught. Because sometimes if you pick up a toy and say toy, they will soon begin to start to relate. And if they're in the cot and you have different colors and you're saying this color, that color, and even you're feeding them and you're telling them what they're eating, you'll be surprised that by age 2, I mean, I have a grandson, and by age 2, he could point out, Mom buys that. Supermarket is one of the best places to train your children. I call it children's university, because they learn so much, because you pick it up and you say, oh, these are beans. And they will look at it and they will relate the color. My granddaughter, when she was 3, she could pick out her clothes that she was going to wear outside, like to go to the park, and know the colors and things like that. So if we teach them these things, they find learning very enjoyable. And it helps you, it helps the child. And so the goo-goo and gaga don't mean anything in my estimation.
So
it's just like a child will always call dad, isn't it? That was the first word they say, not mom, because mom's always there talking to them and say, daddy's coming and daddy's that. And when they open them out, they say dad, and mom feels bad because you see what I'm trying to say. So yes. It's about, yeah.
So another thing though, you also stated about the importance of modeling the behavior. You might not have used that specific string of words, but I heard it and I'm beginning to wonder now. And I would want you as well as possibly Judith Liber Thomas to chime in on this, because I'm looking at the possibility that so what I do might be overt. You can see what's happening, but sometimes the child or the children or the youth, they tend to take up some of the things that I was not overtly showing them as well. So in other words, this child is the personification of the things that I dislike in me.
Yeah.
You know, how do I work to prevent something like that from occurring?
You have to know you and be aware of your behavior and get to know the child, because some children are very perceptive. It's like sometimes we might say little words or have little actions, but when the child goes out, you feel ashamed, because just as what you were saying or the way you were doing it, that's what the child starts doing. And you're not even aware that they are picking up those actions and those words from you. And if the child might not hear bad words in the house, but you hear them with it if they go certain place, or they hear it on the TV or on the radio, because it seemed like fun. What you were saying to them didn't seem like fun or a game, but it seemed like a fun and everybody laughed. Yeah, it's just like you have a child and they misbehave and you say, leave him cute, you see. What's the child going to do? Child's still going to carry it on because you have given affirmation of that behavior. So when you want the child to break the behavior, it's already part of them.
Oh, all right. So let me draw in Judith Liva Thomas to this part now. So I have a child at home. I overtly affirm. I show this child how to behave, how to conduct himself, but for whatever reason, that attributes in me that I dislike, the timidity, the poor self-confidence, that's what you see manifesting in this child. But as far as you're concerned, you are teaching this child the other things, but he or she is actually learning these things that you're not teaching. How do I get to that point where I can, one, assess me in an effort to help that child, and just generally, how can I prevent it?
Okay, thank you, Kwame, for that question. We have to remember that children are born with different temperaments. Okay, so are you hearing me?
A little low, but I'm hearing you. I'm hearing you.
1 second. Let me turn it on. Sorry. Okay, how is that? Is that better?
That's better.
Okay. So first of all, we have to remember that children are born with different temperaments. Okay. So I might be a very outgoing person, like to be very lively and vibrant and around a lot of people, but I might produce a child who is very quiet and reserved. And I think we have to accept that, right? We can't make them into what we'd like them to be. Affirmation is always good, but some children are just born shy and they're reserved. And it will take a lot more to kind of bring them out and to bring, and to bring their self-confidence to the point where you would like. So it's not a cookie cutter type of world. We have to know our child, first of all, and then we have to, all of us go through it as parents. You try to figure out what's the best way I can get the best out of my child. And you ask the Lord to help you, and you try things, and you also have to remember, I don't know what age child we're talking, but yes, you may be the primary influence, but what are the other influences that this child may be exposed to? You may be the father and you come home every day fine after 5, but what is the helper doing with the child in daytime, or the child is going to daycare or something? So there are other influences. So you have to take everything into account. Okay.
All right. Thank you. So before
just one thing more, Kwame. Sometimes the child might do a thing, and it's the way that we try to correct them. So if you're scrolling or you're shouting at them or you're changing your voice in a certain way, whereas sometimes some children might do things, as Doc is saying, their temperament. Some people don't like people, so they don't like people talking hard to them or talking to them in a gruff, aggressive manner. And very often I get very hurt when I'm out on the street. And the way they talk to the children is frightening. Even as an adult, I find it sometimes frightening. So what does it do to that little child? And sometimes that child, as Doctor is saying, will withdraw, or they might become so brash, or they'd say they're rude. So the way how we handle them and the way we treat them, we must realize that they are tender, and we can hurt, their feelings can be hurt, and sometimes they're hurt and hurt and hurt. And what do? They withdraw. And then sometimes when they reach the teenage, they go overboard. And then we are wondering what went wrong. It went wrong in the beginning.
Oh, so I am. Thank you very much for that. I'm now going to take Mrs. Pottinger Giles. She has something to chime in.
Okay, thank you, Elder Kwame, and happy Sabbath, everyone. Yes, I just want to weigh in on the conversation about how you actually, kind of mold your children for making of a success in life. And I want to think that this actually begins from in utero, that is from in the womb, because the decisions that you make when you have them inside here will also influence them. We hear about mothers who are drinking a lot of alcohol, for example, and the effect that it will have on the development of the child. So certainly the choices that you're making as a mother is going to influence the outcome of your child later on in life, after they're born and going further. We also can think of something like breastfeeding. Coming a little at birth here, where it's shown that children who are breastfed, that their development, there's an advantage to their development. I don't want to go into the details right now, but it's definite that breastfeeding has that positive impact on the development of a child. Certainly one psychologist actually posit that this will create a kind of trusting tendency that they probably would not have had if they were not breastfed and be held closely by their caregiver and so on. And as they grow, of course, I want to also agree with what the other panelists have said, that just the way you interact with them as an infant, do you attend to their needs from early in life? Do you speak with them softly? And even in utero, it is said that if you play a certain kind of music, classical music, it helps to, in brain development. And when they are younger too, do you have a lot of noise around them? Do you have a soft, soothing environment? And all of these are going to impact the child's development.
All right.
So I just wanted to throw that in there.
So I'll throw this question out to everybody now. So I know I've been raised at the tail end of that era where it says that children should be seen and not heard. But I'm hearing a whole heap of things that's going directly against what we grew up hearing, or what I certainly grew up hearing. So we find that these children are fully persons. They have their full autonomy and personhood from early. So what's now going to be far more important is how do we teach them to set boundaries from as early as possible? How do we teach that child or those children to set boundaries as early as possible? And I want anybody to chime in on this one now. I won't just leave it for the quote unquote experts. You can start by telling me what, because most of you would have been parents or grandparents or godparents. So I would want to have some idea as to what experiences you might have brought to the table in terms of showing this child how to set boundaries and to express his or her autonomy as a child.
Okay, I'll go with that one. And I want to share a personal experience, because when my son, I'm sure he was less than 2, he was probably about 1, and that was the first time he threw a tantrum at home. And when he did that, I know that is not something that I really wanted him to have. He was actually crying for something. He asked for something and I said no, and he threw himself on the ground. And right there and then I said to him, as long as you do that, you'll never get what you ask for. And I just walked away and left him there. I was quite surprised that he just lifted up his head and he looked at me with a questioning look as if, you're serious? And I said, yes, I am serious. You will never get it if you do that. I'll tell you something, he never threw another tantrum. So that was one way of setting boundaries. You can also set boundaries by giving children simple choices. So I think Mrs. Grant spoke to that earlier, but I just want to dig in a little deeper, because sometimes when we give children choices, we give them too many choices and it confuses them, it overwhelms them. So if you know that, okay, these are 2 things that I would not mind my child having. In fact, they are good for this child. then you can actually offer them, okay, what would you like for breakfast this morning? Would you like oranges or would you like ripe bananas? For you, you know that either of those, but you're giving them the ability to choose at that time. And you have to use teachable moments, because there are times when a child might be making a choice that you know is not good for them. And you may say, okay, so tell me, why would you like to have this? And they'll tell you why. And you use that moment to say, you know that this, if you do this, this is what will happen. And I'm going back to my own experience too. I remember when my son again was young, he was quite an interesting young man, still is, but he insisted on touching the pot in the kitchen, the hot pot. I mean, I just couldn't keep him out of the kitchen because I was alone with him for most of the days, well, during the days. And he was very, very curious. I give thanks for that. But he insisted on touching this hot pot. And I said, no, it will burn you. And he daring me. And I said, no, it will burn you. He still insisted. So I allowed him to touch it. And then he pulled back his hand and I said, that's it. Burn. That's what it means. Hot, burn. You never touch the pot again. So you learn, sometimes you have to, give a little bit of, allow them to have some experience within control so that they will understand the consequences of some action in a controlled environment where it would not be detrimental.
All right, I saw where Dr. Stern wanted to chime in, so I'm going to give him the opportunity now.
Well, Sister Pushing the Jazz just said what I had in my mind. You have to allow the child to make a mistake and learn from the mistakes. And that's what you want to do. Okay, then go ahead. And when they have, like your son got his finger burnt, now you realize that that is the result of doing that action. You won't do it again, hopefully. So, some parents might not want a child to fall down. The child wants to learn to walk, they may have to fall down a few times to learn to walk. Allow them to fall down. Then they learn more and more how to keep the balance. And that is an important means of coming to make a decision as to just what they want to do.
All right, thank you. So for the rest of the panelists now, I'll throw this one out to first to Judith Lieber Thomas and then to Sister McClymont Grant. What are boundaries? So we just spoke about some of the things that we just came out of the conversation with was to allow controlled experiences, allow them to make mistakes, but in a controlled environment. But now we're still looking at the child and boundaries. What are boundaries, and how should we understand them as adults who are going to teach our children these things?
Okay, I'll come. I'll take it first. You hearing me?
Yes, I'm hearing you.
Okay. So think of it simplistically, almost like a boundary is a fence, which basically keeps you safe within your space. So all the different rules and regulations, a boundary is you have to get up at 6 o'clock or whatever and go and start getting ready for school. A boundary is that you have to go to school every day. A boundary is that, well, I give you a lunch and you eat it. And I'm going to come and pick you up at 3 o'clock and you must be ready. So all the rules and regulations that we put in place are boundaries which we put there to keep our children safe. Now, bigger boundaries are like, let's say dinner time. You said no phone calls at dinner. You as the adult, you can't take any phone call, if the child is not allowed to take a phone call. So you have to abide by your boundaries as well. And then you have personal boundaries, which maybe you have to sleep in your room and mommy and daddy sleep in their room. So you have different types of boundaries, but it's the rules and regulation and the framework that keeps the family functioning and keeps the family safe.
So Sister Grant, Sister McClellan Grant, I just heard Sister Thomas saying that I have to play by the rules that I set. But growing up, this is big people things. It's a picky thing. So that's how I understood it. So naturally then that's going to be, or that might most likely be the approach that I take to my own child rearing experience. But this sounds like I'm hearing something totally different. How should I understand that, and how can I put that in my own
Right.
arsenal of growth exercise?
Okay. You see, when you were growing up, they set the rules. The adults set the rules, yes? And you do as I say, not necessarily as I do. Now, what we are talking about, you hearing me?
Yes, I'm hearing you.
Okay, because I'm seeing something else. Now, what we're talking about is you have to, some of the times, depending on the age of the child, just like how you have a child and you might have it in a cot and then it moves to a little baby bed, or you might have it in a playpen. Yeah, these are various boundaries, but it is progressive based on the age of the child. So you have older children and you're having problems with them wanting to take phone calls. However, suppose you are working and you're on call. Yeah, like how Dr. Daria is sometimes on call and she has to take the calls. These are some things that you have to negotiate with the children and let them understand that the only calls I'm going to take. So sometimes, very often, the rules are arbitrary, but sometimes you have to discuss it with the children. Sometimes you have to work it out, even with very small children. They might want to go to the park at 6 o'clock in the morning, but you have to teach them that we go to the park after lunch. See what I'm trying to say? Or after we go for a walk after breakfast. So you're negotiating and you're setting certain boundaries, but sometimes they aren't even aware that there are boundaries. You're just teaching them that, hey, we have to make a choice. And the thing is that you don't make an arbitrary choice without considering what you're doing or without recognizing that you have to stick to it. So that's where the discipline comes in. Yeah. So you say something, don't say it unless you really mean it. Like Sister Pottinger Joy says, well, this child have to feel what hot feels like. So you go and telling the child, oh, and you play with them, and then one day something serious happens because they haven't realized that this is a boundary that they must not cross. Yeah. And they can be safe in the same environment without being hurt. So it's making the choices progressive as the children get older. I give you experience. My son Gary, a shortfall also in all of this is that, as to go back to Sister Cooper, we don't teach the children how to handle money, how to take care of themselves. We do it all, and one day they all go off to university and they can't manage, because we used to have to feed them on campus because they eat off the CAF card within a few days. I had a problem with Gary teaching him what the consequences are. He might have been about 13, 14. He was at high school. We went out to buy shoes. I'm teaching him how to buy shoes. And he decides that he wants that pair. I'm saying, hey, it's not going to last the time that I've stipulated. We have worked out how long it should last you. This one isn't going to last. And he insisted that he wanted. I said, but there are going to be consequences. So, but he's very, and so we bought the shoes. It wasn't going to last after a few months, and it was going. He came up with an idea. He said he didn't wait until it had gone. He came and said, Mom, the shoes isn't going to last. I said, yes, but what's the consequence? So he worked out a system and said, all right, he'll use his pocket money to pay the shoemakers to fix the shoes so that it can last. So you're teaching the consequences. And when they go over the boundaries, then, we must be prepared. And they must also know what the consequences are so that they can learn to better. No, anybody know him, he can shop more than anybody else, So you have to teach them so many things instead of making arbitrary rules. Some of them, when they get certain age, they're going to want to push the boundaries. But always talk with them, work it out before it comes to a crisis.
So it sounds like, it sounds now like I'm bringing my child
Yes.
in as a junior partner in the whole scheme of things. That's what I'm hearing, because when I hear of allowing them to make mistakes, allowing them to take part in the planning process, allowing them to gain their own experiences, albeit in a controlled environment, immediately what comes to mind, and one of the questions that came at me was, isn't that abuse when you allow them to make certain mistakes? For example, that child touching the pot, you know that it would burn them. They are insistent on touching the pot, but if you allow them to touch the pot, some persons might argue that this might be abuse. On the other hand, though, if you allow this child to have his tantrum or her tantrum whenever she wants to, some persons might see it as neglect, which is also abuse. So it seems complex, it seems complicated, a complicated terrain to navigate. So that's it. If you have any views on that part of it, fine, you can let me know. No, if not, I'm going to just throw the baton over to Sister Cooper, where I want her to tell me what are some of the nuts and bolts involved in teaching my child how to plan.
Okay, I am unable to release my video, but I'll speak. Well, in terms of the nuts and bolts, these steps are, first of all, I think it's important if it's a child that the parent develops with the child a value set, like in terms of, especially within our community as a body of Christ, as I indicated earlier. The values will often also, sometimes we think the children are too young, but it's important to start to give shape in these formative years in terms of values. But the nuts and bolts would be to determine what's important within the sphere of the young child's domain. I mean, it can't be too complex, and there's an end in mind. There's something that the child wants to achieve. Then I think we can use the same process where we say, all right, what is it that this child can contribute to in making this become a reality? So if the intention is to acquire, say, a gift at Christmas time for a parent, and the child wants to do that, then can that child also contribute by saving some of the pocket money, because this is something they can influence and feel a part of pursuing those goals. Is that something that will actually lead to it? And we can make the connection. I think it's important that we train our children in knowing what is the connection between this and that, I mean, if a particular, so they understand different steps. Just continue to monitor them in terms of choice making. Are they seeing success? Because I mean, children will celebrate when they succeed, or they will rebel when they don't. We have to actually be in those moments in terms of the same things we were just discussing about how to shape the behaviors, how to actually ensure that we train children, because children will train us how to treat them. So we need to actually be very attuned to the responses and how we are developing that. And it comes right back full circle to the whole business of shaping their values.
All right, good. So now we're going to ease into some of the factors that influences the choice that we make, the choices that we make. I understand, and most of us understand, that the unconscious things that make people, there are certain unconscious things or subconscious things that cause us to make choices and decisions. What are some of those things that I need to be mindful of? Because in my mind, they would seem like blind spots, so to speak, in my mirror. I'm driving, and when I look in the car, there are certain blind spots that I'm not able to see to navigate through. And I think with Sister Cooper's presentation, she spoke about the knowledge. She showed us a pie chart with knowledge, and she says that there are things that we know, there are things that we don't know, and then there are things that we don't know that we don't know. And that's an even larger blind spot than I thought just now. Just look at that. How do we learn to navigate around those things? And what are some of those other factors, subconscious and otherwise, that will allow us to make certain choices or decisions? Anybody can chime in with this. I'll take you first, Sister Cooper, and then I'll turn over to the psychologists and psychiatrists and the behavioral people.
Well, in terms of the whole knowledge set, I guess it will always depend on how we're growing and learning, because the whole encouragement in that point was to seek out engagement and conversations with persons in areas. You might be uncertain in a particular area, there might be a blind spot, but in conversations with persons who have been down that road, your parents, have the conversations, because your piece of that pie that you know, and what that you know that you don't know gets enlarged as you develop, as you learn and grow, as you have an open mindset, not a closed mindset. So you're open to things that are not yet things that you're familiar with. Explore, collect data, engage in learning, new areas of passion, developing interests, and exploring, being exposed with others and so on is the way in which you can actually do that. And then the professional development, because somebody might be in the domain of, you don't know how to fly a plane, but then if that is an area of passion and interest and capability, then you can engage in getting trained and developed, and then that moves into that domain and so on. So that is really the whole business of doing your homework, understanding yourself, understanding what you're passionate about, what you're great at, what you seem to be wired for, and then pursuing some of those opportunities.
All right. So don't lose sight of that question. I see the mics are open. So I'll just allow Sister Judith to jump in now, and then Sister Yvonne, and then I'll ask the other sets of questions that I have.
Okay, thank you, Kwame. So I wanted to highlight two things. First, in terms of children, there's something called pester power. That is where marketing companies use techniques to encourage children to nag their parents to purchase a particular product.
Oh, wow.
And we all know about that. We have all been subject to that. And in fact, some countries institute laws that limit pester power, because the child is basically undiscerning, cannot discern very well between what is this reality or is it not reality? Is this good for me or not? Maybe only up until maybe about age 8 and after. So for a company to deliberately market it to a child under 8, there's something unethical about that. And I know from my reading, like McDonald's apparently did a lot of that. And eventually they had to change their whole marketing strategy, because parents felt that they were just being unethical, targeting the children, these children who were just like blank, in a way, blank slates. They couldn't discern. And then these children were just nagging their parents for whatever they wanted. So that's one thing we have to be aware of, called pester power, or the nag factor. For our older teenagers now, we have to remember something. There's something called the hedonic treadmill. And that is basically where I have to get the latest thing that is on. So you see, like iPhone, we have iPhone 1, I know it's at 10. I can't be content with my iPhone 1 because there's an iPhone 10. You understand me? So we are sucked into that, particularly our younger people, because you have to get the latest thing or else you're not saying anything. And things like social media, you know, contribute to this. So we have to be careful about that. So those are 2 points I just want to put on the table.
Mr. Irvin, I want you to chime in because I'm burning.
I'll go back again to the beginning. You see, when you start teaching children about choices, what do? They might have preferences, or even older persons, you prefer that as against that. But the principle is that what you prefer, you might have to forego that based on the principle of the thing that you're choosing about. Yes, but there's a third dimension. I might have a preference or a principle, but what does God want for me? What is God's choice? Yeah. So we have to be aware of those things. And also, if in the beginning the children actually learn how to make right choices based on sometimes preference, sometimes principle, or most of the times or all the time based on principle, and you have that trust in God, then you will be bringing them up not to be, as Dr. is saying, the majority of them, and the peer pressure. So I have a better phone than you. You want to, you're poor because you're not wearing designer clothes, those sorts of things. These are the things that children, our young people, are suffering from because of the society and the time that they live. And that's where the parents know. But you see, when you talk about the way you were brought up, that is a shortcoming of this culture, because if you start sitting with your children and discussing and saying, oh boy, you want to go to university, but you want I-10, you know what I mean? So I have to be paying into some insurance scheme right now. So which one would you think be better for you in the long run? So we're talking about deferred gratification. And if you're holding these sort of conversations, people are going to say that you're spoiling the child, isn't it? And that they're having their own way, but you're trying to get certain values, as Sister Cooper is saying, have certain values so that what's happening and the bling and all that is not the most important thing in life. And what is most important is maybe not having a phone at all, because some of these persons who run these companies and are developing these companies, their children don't have phone. I mean, if developed countries, 17, 18-year-old just getting the first phone, 16, 17, 18. But I go in the store and this 5, 6-year-old can tell their parent, this one is that one, and they know all about the phone, and they can't even spell the name. So it's where the parenting comes in. And if, as we were talking about setting the right example, if the parent is indisciplined, the child is not going to be growing up with any discipline and they won't have any self-control. So a lot of these things, the end product is the fruit of neglect of some of these things. And another thing is, if some person everybody had made the choices for them, they now have children, it's going to be very difficult to break that cycle and start to work in another way, because you feel that no, your child must have everything that you didn't have. And they don't realize that you have to work hard for it. So they don't develop that sort of ethic of working, and they come out of tertiary education and they can't hold down a job. They can't hold, just because of the choices are not able to make the right choices. Some of them, as you pay them so, they go and buy here. And then 2 weeks after, they're looking for lunch. You see what I'm trying to say? So those choices are detrimental to the adult, and we need to get back to the basics.
All right. So thank you very much. A whole heap of things are coming, a whole heap of questions are being thrown. So I see where Dr. Stern wants to make a comment, and then Sister Pottinger Giles wants to make a comment as well. So I'll take Dr. Stern first, take Brother Stern, and then take Sister Pottinger Giles.
Okay. Sister McCarthy Grant mentioned the word self-control. That's what I want to emphasize here, that children need to learn self-control or self-discipline. And to achieve that comes a possibly a routine of a bedtime routine to follow, a time to get up, to learn to exercise, as time to go for a walk. So they might say, I don't want to do it now, but they need to learn to do it because will have an eventual benefit for them immediate and even later on. And if they learn to exercise self-control, self-discipline, they can make these other decisions much better. And one of the decisions nowadays children have to make is how much use of that device is allowed. So there is a question about unlimited use of the device, or is it 1 hour, is it 2 hours that's allowed? That's a major health decision now. And as children learn self-discipline, self-control, it will be easier to establish, the activities that will keep them from hurting.
All right,
yes.
So right now, okay, go on.
Well, that's the self. It's all we call temperance. In other words, gratifying your taste just because it tastes good, I want it. Just because it looks good, I need it. No, self-control tells you that it might look good, but it's not good. You might need a device to use because it's exciting, but enough is, you might not see it now, but enough is just 1 hour, and that's it for today. Going to take the device will be turned off, it will be taken away. Some regime will be followed, and there's a regime, the time for bed, the time to turn off the device, the time to get up, and so on.
All right, thank you very much, Sister Patinder Giles.
Thank you, Elder Kwame. Yeah, I just want to underscore, yes, what Dr. Stern just said. I intended to say some of those, but I want to also add to that we very often think that children don't understand a lot, and they do understand much more than we think that they can do. There's a saying that knowledge is power. So if we really do provide information for them from very early and help them to understand the reason why we are suggesting or we are expecting certain kind of actions from them, it can make a big difference. So if we say, for example, you're not going to be able to be on your phone after 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock, whatever time you choose. Don't just leave it there to say, I'm going to take away your phone after 9. But I'm going to take away your phone, not in the sense that I want to deprive you of your phone, but because I know that this is what is good for you, because you have to go to school in the morning, and if you don't get enough sleep, then you are not going to be able to keep up. And whatever, there are whatever reasons you have for the activity. And the point was made earlier too about you actually being the example for what you want from your child. So if you say no phone at the dinner table, then you have to lead by example. Another point was made that if you are on call, for example, and you need to use your phone, then you should explain to the child that, okay, I may have to take a call, but I will excuse myself because I'm still at work and I'm on duty. Somebody might die if I don't take this call. So if that child wants to take a call, you will need to find out from them who is going to die, how important it is. And if they can't tell you who is going to die, then you don't have a reason for using the phone. So we have to really have this conversation with them. Yes, like they can understand, because they really can understand. And there is something else, because you mentioned a little earlier about the unconscious factors that help us to make decisions. And what some persons don't even realize is that the physical state you're in sometimes can actually influence the decisions that you make. For example, you may be trying to lose weight. You go to shop when you're hungry and you pick up all the wrong things. That's an unconscious factor there, because you didn't go with the intention to pick up the wrong things, but because of your physical state. We also know that if you are very stressed, especially chronically stressed, you tend to make impulsive decisions or make impulsive choices that you would not normally would have made when you were in a more regulated state of being. Thank you.
Sure. So, Sister Cooper, I see your hand is up.
Yes, I'm unable to unblock, but yes, in terms of, from a parenting perspective, the whole business of accompanying our children with choices, right? And I'm talking from my own, we're empty nesters right now. And I know the natural tendency for parents is to help, even when the child is growing up into adulthood and so on, the tendency is to step in and help and try to, make life easier, probably easier than you had it, and so on and so forth. And I had to, there has to be a mindset shift as well, and it can sometimes be very painful. And the problem is more with us as parents, keeping that under control, and not jumping in. And as a matter of fact, I think about the whole thing about the butterfly and the cocoon, and the fact that when we step in, we block our children's ability to build those muscles to deal with their own decision making, when they become, adults and so on, and then those muscles are atrophied, and when they're out there on their own, they don't have those because we have always stepped in. I know that I've had to sort of restrain myself. Sometimes you see your children in a particular position and you say, I could do this and this could solve the problem, but I have to remember, and I'm just imploring other parents, as painful as it is, the long-term objective of ensuring that the children are set up for success. We have to have that feeling subordinated to the need to step in, jump in, and actually, make those choices, or influence the choices in ways that are not necessarily healthy for them, so that they develop strong muscles to deal with what life throws at them in the future.
All right, thank you very much. So I'm seeing a whole heap of comments on YouTube. I'll start with one that says, "Be the example of the boundary setting principles that you want to see. And as parents, we have to set boundaries, but we have to be consistent." And then someone stated that the children will call you out. I understand that very well. But then a comment that just came in, that I need to share with you guys, that the lacking of a father or a father figure in a child's life has a big impact on them. And this person is actually talking from experience. And, so we want the psychiatrist and the psychologist, firstly, to chime in on how important is it to ensure that you have both parents represented here, for the children, to ensure that that home and that child or those children are actually socially and emotionally healthy children or people.
I'll start. Okay, so I'm gonna speak personal. I don't think my husband will mind. Okay, so I tend to be softer, and he's more disciplinarian. So my classic is this: if my son, when he was growing up, if he said he had a bellyache, and let's say he was supposed to go to school or something, my first response would be to responsive. Oh my, is he going to be having gastroenteritis? Is something else going on? Maybe he shouldn't go to school. So I am the responsive parent, right? Wanting to kind of soothe and cuddle him. Alfred would be what they call the responsible parent. So he would say, "You're having a bellyache, but you're not vomiting, you're not dying. You're gonna go to school." And then somewhere between there, we'll find a balance, because here is my son in the middle. Here is mommy who's gonna cuddle him, but daddy is saying, yes, you may have a bellyache, but you're not dying, so you have to go to school. So I think that when children have the two, there's a balance, and they have a better understanding of maybe male-female interaction, different viewpoints, and somehow the balance comes out. How did I say it? Right, they get a more balanced view of life. So that is my example always for the male-female why there needs to be this male-female interaction.
All right. I'm not sure who else would want to chime in on that. I'll pick Sister Patricia Giles to chime in on that one as well.
Sorry, but I really did not hear the question. I got bumped off momentarily, so I missed the question. Sorry about that.
We're looking at the lacking of a father, but I had broadened that to say the lacking of or the non-representation of one parent in the child's life and what kind of impact that could have on that child's stability emotionally, socially, and otherwise, where a parent is missing.
Okay, thank you. So, you know, I am sure that there's a good reason why children have to have two parents. They could not come into this world without two parents. I mean, that sets the foundation. The fact that they could not come in the world without two parents, it means that the Creator must have had a great plan for two parents to be in the child's life. And so, as children growing up, mothers and fathers play different roles in the child's life. Sister Liva Thomas, she talked about even one who is the disciplinarian, the other who is not. It is said that mothers, well, women are usually more of the nurturers, and the fathers are more of the disciplinarians and the provider. And so that creates the balance, as you heard in the example before. The research has also shown, though, that girls, for example, who lack a father figure in their life was more likely to get pregnant as a teenager. And I think that this would be because that fatherly love that they lacked, they are going to get it just without thinking about it, just without understanding how it should look like, what it should look like. And they are going to try and get that as early as puberty sets in, and there's this emotional roller coaster because puberty is, and you know, interestingly, it is also at that time that they can get pregnant. So we can see why a young lady is more likely to get pregnant when they didn't have a father in their life. We see the impact on boys as well when there is not a father in their life. And we say father because that is usually what happens in our society, because they grow up to see only feminine things in their lives. They grow up to see women putting on makeup. They dress up in, you know, the different kinds of clothing, and children are so very good emulators. They emulate what they see, and it is going to be very important for the boy to be able to see what a man looks like, how a man behaves, and that is where he's going to take his cue as to how he's going to treat a woman later on in life. That is how he takes his cue, as also he treat his peers, his female peers at school. That is so important. And he also needs the mother who is going to give this nurturing kind and allow him to be able to learn how to interact with a female. I mean, not necessarily from a sexual perspective, but generally overall, emotionally, physically. That is when he learns that the woman is generally weaker physically and needs that kind of, you know, manly support. That is when he knows that you should take home flowers for your mom, and he knows that you take home flowers for your wife, your girlfriend later on in life. So he learns a lot of things by having the father in his life. I tell you that I sometimes see persons who have a problem because they say, I don't have a father, and I don't have no. When I see other boys having their father to go play football and just go line with, I really feel so like I'm lacking so much because I don't have that. The girls also will tell you sometimes that they really just wish that I love my father and he wasn't there. And I just have this great desire. You know, it makes me feel like something is lacking. And what they turn to just about any man who can provide that kind of love.
All right, thank you very much, Sister McClymont Grant.
Yes, I would like to say that there's a lot of dysfunction, because sometimes some homes have mother and father, but I don't know. The relationships are not good. And sometimes the responsibility is heavy on the mother, or vice versa. And this, as we see nowadays, there's a lot of abuse and a lot of killing of the women and the children and all these sort of things. So there's a lot of dysfunction. On the other side of the coin, there are lots and lots of homes that are led by women on their own. And it's an impossible task. And we, as a church, we have many persons, single parent families in our church. So I think we have a responsibility to really draw close to these individuals who are suffering, with children especially, and see how best we can work with them and with the children, because sometimes the children don't feel a part of, and as you say, as Sister Batinder Giles is saying, they don't feel like normal human beings, but the time is not there. And you go back and say, so many single mothers, single fathers, dysfunctional homes, and we're going back to knowing that the children are affected from conception. Under certain circumstances, the mother not being treated right. And I understand in this country they go for maternal care at a very late stage in the pregnancy, and all these things, and there are health issues, mental health issues, and it's a very dysfunctional situation that these children are born in. So they're born already with so many negatives. As Sister Pottinger Giles is saying, you have 3 generations of persons. The mother had this one at 15, the daughter had another one at hers at 14, and her child come 15 or 14 and have another child. So, but grandmother don't even reach 30 years old good yet, and she's a grandmother, and she has no real concept of parenting. So you have 3 generations, and then it's going to be 4 or 5 of persons who have no concept of how to parent children, how to take care of these children, let alone talk about choices. They eat anytime, they sleep, they eat what they get when they get it. They sleep whenever, they live in noisy situations. So you can't put them to bed at 7 o'clock because, and working in community, I see some things that are very, 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 very disturbing. So when we look and see that children are coming up in this sort of situation, in this society, can you imagine the majority of the children out there? And some persons are even afraid when they send their children to school, because what they are being exposed to is totally against what they're trying to teach their children at home. And some of them would gravitate to the wrongs, but we can't blame the children who are in this situation. Look at week before last. One boy killed another boy in school for this ring business that I couldn't even understand myself. I'm still having problems getting my head. But the next day, the same school, when they checked the children, there were loads of children in there with knives and scissors sharpened, and some of them coming with it to cut up their ganja, some of them could come in to do all sorts of things. So the society we are living in is a desperate time to try and bring up children. It's a very, very serious time. And I'm really, for parents like yourself with children, and young children and all of this, it's a very serious time, very, very serious time.
All right, so I'll take Sister Cooper's now view on that, and then we move right.
No, I was just saying that on the one hand, this kind of perception of the earthly father can sometimes have a negative impact on who is the heavenly father. But we give thanks for the church, and for I can give a shout out to our men's ministries. For example, I know that they have alternatives where it's not possible that a man could be in the home, that the ministries such as our men's ministries here at Andrews, who mentor young boys in a safe environment, I think there is more opportunity now for us to actually reach out within ministries such as that, where you have even the family life ministries where persons are enjoying a wholesome, relationship and families are intact. Perhaps some mentoring or supporting can happen within the corporate world. There is the opportunity for us to have more of that kind of situation where the resources are extended to ensure that it's not a hopeless case, because even God does still have his eyes, and he still numbers the hair on the head of single parents and single boys. And I think he wants us to join him in his work in terms of just ensuring that we can create a space of safety and actually enhance some of what is already in place with some of the ministries that we have in our very own church to fill the gap. We know it's a lot of, but we can start something going with some of these ministries, I think.
All right. Thank you very much for your contribution. The last set, because I go on to another section now at the program, but someone had stated or someone had made a request. Suppose as a parent, I don't have the intellect to negotiate with my child at the level of what we're speaking about. Where can I go as a young and overwhelmed mom or dad to get that kind of help? This one is thrown out to everybody there.
Well, the person could go to seek counseling, well, even from the church, hopefully, from some persons that might guide them, if they know somebody at a church, might guide them to some source of help. If the church has minister for children, or hopefully somebody in the church might know who to look for, and in some health institution or clinic. If it's a clinical problem, if it's just a behavioral problem, a great thing is teaching children to learn to know Jesus. And Sister Cooper was referring to that earlier. Ministry for children, teaching children to have a personal relationship with Jesus is very, very important in learning self-control and accountability to someone who's always near to them. There might be other ideas besides mine.
All right. Thank you very much, Elder. Now we're going to be moving on for the last few minutes. Before that, we're going to just show a short video, and then when we come back, just one video, and when we come back, we'll look at some of the choices that adults actually make, and how we actually make these choices, or how we should rather make some of these choices. So we'll just have a brief video, after which we will then move on to looking at how adults actually make some choices, or how they can make better choices.
Hi everyone, I'm Nathaniel Cassie. As it is 2022 and we are already approaching March, I have made some healthier choices by drinking water every day, by implementing fruits and vegetables in my meals, and by exercising. I drink at least 2 liters of water every day so that I stay hydrated so I can finish all my various tasks for the day. I eat fruits and vegetables in my meals so that I can gain all the nutrients from them. I exercise at school by playing table tennis and basketball. Those are the healthier choices that I have made since 2022.
So when I was listening to Sister Cooper's presentation, a number of things came to mind, and I wanted to understand the difference between, or whether or not there's a difference, or should there be a difference between our sacred choices and our secular choices, because sometimes or quite often we put a dichotomy between how we live our lives. You have Kwame at church and Kwame everywhere else besides church. But what you seem to be saying in your presentation is that it's full circle. It's just one Kwame, and there should be no dichotomy between my sacred place, as in church, and the choices, or my secular choices. What do you have to say about that? And then the others can chime in on this as well.
All right. Well, I would say a resounding yes. We should be one person because we're all on the edge of eternity. And the ultimate objective of life is to really, this is really a dry run for eternity with the Lord, regardless of what is made up with all of the secular options that we have. The Lord wants us to occupy, to use our talents and gifts to support each other, to love each other, and so on. And so, yes, we need to do that. But definitely in terms of our values, we actually say, if you're a Christian, will persons outside find evidence to support the fact that you're a Christian? You should, when you declare that, you're also quietly testifying and witnessing to others, so that they can even be drawn to coming into a saving relationship with the Lord, because they see that it doesn't have to be two different things. You can declare your faith and walk and resound in faith and in the Lord without actually compromising on anything in what you do, and it should reflect that. So Christians are not followers of Christians, they're not followers of others, they're followers of Christ. And so we should role model that. God, I don't think that, well, I know for sure that God doesn't want us to segregate. We should flavor what we do by the values that we expose and sign up for by being Christians. It will make the world a better place, I think, for sure.
All right. Thank you very much. Now, I'm also interested in the idea of mental models. And I heard something about mental models, a growth mindset, moving to a growth mindset from a fixed mindset, set and so on. I want to find out, not from you yet, Sister Cooper, I'm deliberately going to ask Dr. Leba Thomas and Sister Pottinger Giles first to chime in on that, and then I'll throw it over to Sister McClymont Grant, and then Dr. Stern, and then I'll come back to you, Sister Cooper. So it's Leba Thomas, Pottinger Giles, then McClymont Grant, then Stern, then you.
I'm sorry, Kwame, I didn't hear the question. You want to hear the difference between a growth mindset and a fixed mindset?
Oh, no, not necessarily the difference though, I understand that these things exist, but I want to move from the fixed mental model to a growth mindset. What are some practical applications that I personally can take and implement in my own life that will help me to move from that place and to get to somewhere where I'm now malleable and I am trainable?
Okay, Kwame, if you'll allow me, I saw some questions in the chat, which I want to address. There's a question about a child who has been molested, and this child is acting out, and this parent wants help for the child. So I'm telling this child, the parent, that the child guidance clinics, if this person is in the corporate area, is available to them. There's one at Glen Vincent, there's one at the Comprehensive Health Center. I've put a number in the chat, that is our helpline, where the parent can call and get any advice or direction as to a child who has this problem, okay? Because I think that's very important. And just to say that the National Parenting Support Commission is really the government organization that's supposed to help parents with parenting. I don't have the number in my head, so perhaps they could look it up and see if they can get any advice from them. I know they were trying to start what they call parenting mentors throughout the island, throughout the communities, throughout the parishes. I'm not sure how well developed that program is, particularly in light of COVID, but that's another resource. All right. Okay, so just quickly, just quickly in terms of growth versus fixed mindset. I see a growth mindset as one, admitting that you don't have all the answers, that the world is changing and you want to adapt with the world, and trying to think in a different way from how you've always thought, trying to explore other possibilities than you have always thought of. And I guess reading widely, looking at other people who you think are innovative, and not feeling that you have all the answers. So that's what I am briefly. That's what I'll say briefly.
All right. So I stated that I would go to Pottinger Giles, then McClymont Grant, then to Stern, and then back to Cooper.
Okay, thank you. So when I think about fixed mindset, what actually comes to my mind is a person in a situation where it may be uncomfortable, or it may be that right now they are comfortable. It all depends, but they are not willing to move out of that situation. They don't see themselves getting anywhere out of that traditional mindset, out of that situation in which they were brought up. For example, when I grew up and see all of my family doing this, and this is what I'm going to stick to, even though you have not even explored anything else. A growth mindset looks more like, this is my current situation, but I know I have more potential. I know I can do better. I know that there is more within. So what would be my preferred circumstances? What would be my preferred situation? And how are you going to arrive at that? You have to look at some of the skills and assets that you have. You have to be able to, as well, gain more information. So you have to read widely. Of course, you have to also pray and ask for God's guidance. You can seek out professional help to say, okay, this is where I am now, and I'm not so comfortable. So I kind of need some guidance. We hear about Sister Cooper, Elder Cooper, being a life coach. That's one person you can speak with. You can speak with a counselor as well, or any other trusted person in where you would want to be. So you have to change the persons that you're now associating with, per se. When I say change them, I don't mean that you're actually your old friends, but that you now associate yourself with persons in where you want to be, so that you can, as if it's almost like they are rubbing off on you, but that's not what it is. It's like you're learning from them, because that knowledge, those information, that kind of life choices, the kind of life choices that they are making, you need to see how they are made as well. So you want to look at all that is available to you and come to a point, a decision where you really would like to be. What are you capable of being? What are you capable of doing? I think Sister Cooper mentioned earlier, we talk about SMART goals. So you look at, is this what, okay, this is what I want to be. And is it really attainable? Is it something that I can really achieve? How will I know when I get there? And by when I really want to get there? You have to look at all of those. And then you have to have a plan of action. How am I going to implement this? What are some of the support that I need? You may need the support of your church family. You may need the support of, your family members. You may need the support of a professional. You may need a loan. You may need to go back to school. But that is a growth mindset, to say that I know what I want now, and I'm going towards, I've set the goals and I'm moving towards growing in that direction. One psychologist talked about a fully functioning person in society, because that's where you really want to go. Being this person who is always moving towards self-actualization. So you don't get comfortable where you are, but you also always know that you have a greater purpose And there is a bigger picture, and it doesn't just stop where you are.
All right, Sister Grant, and then Dr. Stern, then Sister Cooper.
Okay. Yeah. This person needs to be emotionally mature. And this person must have positive mental health. And that means that the thought processes must be structured. They must be able to not be wavering or being unstable, because they really need to be able to think straight, to be able, as Sister Cooper outlined, to be able to do the documenting in a systematic way, which means that to be able to do that, you have to be disciplined. They have to have good work ethic, and they have to be realistic. Yes, you need trust in God, but this person have to really, really know that it's going to be hard work, and they're going to need others, as everybody else say, but they themselves must have some of the characteristics that will help them to get to that stage or to work through all these stages. And that's where the discipline come in. And yeah, being positive, have that positive mental health, know that they can rely on themselves and they can rely on others as well, or they are willing. Sometimes people need help, and if there's a person who will not seek the assistance or go to a professional when they need to, then they're going to do the wrong thing or make life a lot harder for themselves. And if you're going into something, you really need to have some knowledge or good basic knowledge about what you're going into. It can't be just something that's a pie in the sky. It has to be something that they can work with or have had experience with or are even willing to learn. They might not know everything, but have that mindset that will help them to move forward in stages.
All right, Dr. Stern.
Okay, I guess you want me to turn on the camera as well?
Yes, Dr. Stern.
All right. I noticed okay, I think the other speakers have mentioned most of the ideas I might have here, in that I need to ask myself, how am I thinking? And why am I thinking this way? What is my major emotion? Am I doubtful about everything? Am I fearful? Am I worried? Why am I this way? And scripture question the psalmist asks, why thou cast down on my soul? Why thou disquieted within me? Hope thou in God. So hope is an issue that you need to instill in our mind. Do I have hope in what am I hoping, myself or in God? And there is a quotation in the Mind Cure chapter of Ministry of Healing that says that the power of the will must be developed. So we need to look to train the person to exercise their willpower. Let the will be kept awake and rightly directed, and it will impart energy to the whole being and will be a wonderful aid in the maintenance of health. It is a power also in dealing with disease. Exercised in the right direction, it would control the imagination. And that's what I want to underline here, the imagination. And I might just give a little hint. The presentation for tomorrow night, I developed before all of this program was developed. So there's no correspondence as to I'm going to say it's because of this, but I'm seeing a lot of overlapping here. The imagination needs to be controlled for success. The person needs to see themselves. And of course, Sister Cooper referred to these things before. The power is training to trust God to direct the path and to show one's what sort of thinking I have and how to correct my thinking in order to achieve the end goal that I have in mind. So self-control we mentioned before, and the power of the will, and just examining how am I thinking and what can be done to correct it if I'm having some, as one course I did years ago said, am I having stinking thinking? In other words, depressed thinking or otherwise, thinking that is not going to lead to success.
All right, thank you very much. So, Sister Cooper, so this question, the question is really loaded. So I'll suggest that you start now. But as soon as you pause, I'm going to throw in 2 more questions and another statement that you had made. Tell me about mental models and how we can transition between them.
Yeah, well, I think again, it would be remiss if we didn't acknowledge that we have the edge as believers. And although we're speaking to persons who might not be believers, then we want to enroll them in the fact that the plan that God has for us and the way in which he sees us is a very powerful reason to alter our attitude, because that is the first thing, is that even whilst we're in the uncertain state of that closed mindset, is to be willing to be open, to have the right role models. And one role model, I think, is we can look at the role models that we have in Jesus himself. We can look at role models who have made the right choices in terms of going from a limited mindset within the Bible. And we can also see around us, whether in our communities, persons who have actually opened up their attitude, taken chances, made those risks, and so on, trusting in God's covering, right? The other thing is to be present to the journey, like be very inquisitive, notice what is happening along your journey, picking up the learning, mining the gold from whatever you're picking up, because sometimes we think that, when we fall down, that's a problem, but it sets us up if we actually pull on those for the future. That's one way of switching through, understanding what we've learned. We repeat some of these things and testing your own assumptions. We need to test our own assumptions and, trust the intentions of others that we interact with, that whole inquisitiveness and so on. The thing is that one great thing that God gave all of us is the freedom of choice, which is really our subject tonight. But we sometimes think about the I will part of choice, but we also have the I won't, because the fact is that because it's free, you can either be I will or I won't. And so the whole thing about switching from a closed mindset where you say I won't is to really be willing to take the risk, and take the risk knowing that there's covering there, that there's covering by the Almighty hand, and it is free for everybody. Those watching who might not have, surrendered, because it's in the surrendering rather than the action that you can make that switch very powerfully.
All right, thank you very much. So we understand that choice can be defined as the right power, the ability to choose, whereas these are defined as a conclusion or a resolution after some amount of tinkering. Thinking about a few options in mind, and then I have decided upon this thing. Now,
yes.
You said in your statement, in your presentation, something about, well, 2 things. Begin with the end in mind, and the sweet spot. I am extremely interested to hear about the idea of the sweet spot and to think about the end in mind. But I want you, before you get into that, is how do I make, with these things in mind, how do I make powerful choices for success?
With these things in mind, okay. So the thing is that I think when you talk about the sweet spot, one of the things in my work, one of the things that we're very keen on when we're selecting, I do a lot of selection of talent and so on. We're very interested in persons who are passionate about what they do, not only in terms of your capability, but do you have a passion? Is this something that, work is going to become such a happy experience because you're actually doing it? And then if you're capable of doing the particular thing, because you might be attracted to something, but you don't have the capability. and that is not a formula for success. So that is something that one has to understand. You might have the capability, but not you might have the passion, but not the capability. You might have the capability, but not the passion. You know, these are all matrix that you have to think through. But the whole thing about the sweet spot is there are times when you go clink, you have the capability, you have the passion, and you have the opportunity that comes up for you to actually turn that into work and not just a hobby and so on. So I would say that there has to be a balance. Sometimes you're not always going to be able to find work that is your complete passion, but it mustn't be something that is such a terrible wiring that work becomes like slavery or, you know, a painful experience. That would be something that you would need to choose. Sometimes God might be waiting on somebody to actually create, be able to create something in the area of your passion. And instead of looking to be employed, you can actually create a new industry, new opportunities, and employ others as well. We've seen a lot of evidence of that. We have a lot of entrepreneurs, we have a lot of professionals who own their own businesses. We can actually consult in our very church community a lot of those opportunities right here with us. So that is how we can make some of those choices. The other thing was beginning with the end in mind. That's a very powerful way to actually pursue the goals. Creating the thing first in your mind, seeing yourself successful. Like I'm pursuing a degree in order to, whatever it is, make a difference in, if it is that I want to become a doctor, to make a difference in the lives of others. You see yourself there. And then you work back, you know, I mean, like a year before that, what should have happened? You actually see what are the steps right down to your current situation that you need to take in order to make it successful, so that you actually track it and ensure that those steps actually are predictable or predictive of the success. And then you ensure now that you take those steps because you are able and capable of doing so. So rather than going without knowing and then stepping off, and any step will lead you there, it's really good to actually see what the end in mind is, then work it back, and then you're very deliberate when you're taking those steps and sure-footed when you're going. Of course, we commit all of it, all of our plans to the Lord.
All right, thank you very much. So I'm desperate to hear Dr. Lieber's viewpoint on this, but before I ask you to just elaborate on some of your statements, I also want to remind our viewers that if you look down, I think on this side of your screen, you should see a like button. I'm going to ask that if you want to see a part 2 for this program, I suggest that you get that like button up to 100. Once we get 100 likes, we will plan and implement a part 2 for this program. So just go over, it's right down there, click on the like button. I just want 100 likes, and then we'll work on another program. And so that we can answer some of these questions, because time is against us. But Dr. Lieber Thomas, we looked at the sweet spot. We look at some of the matrices that we have to consider. But then this thing that is, I'm trying to wrap my mind around it, is beginning with the end in mind. Sometimes many of us might find it difficult to visualize that end. How can we do that from a psychiatric perspective? How can we do something like that?
I don't know if I'm the right person. Maybe the psychologist, but one thing I can say, what I remember, I went to a function once and Floyd Green was there, the minister, and he said when he entered university, he had a plan of what he wanted to be 5 years' time. And therefore, university was just like, you know, the steps to what he wanted to be. So again, I don't think that there's any magic bullet to it. Visualizing what you'd like to be in 5 years' time. But I will defer to Sister Marlene Pottinger-Giles.
Well done, Sister Dr. Liva Thomas. Yes, it's very important that you write down your goals. Where do I want to be? And it is recommended that you write these goals in the present tense. I think I heard Elder Cooper mention that earlier. You write your goals in the present. So in the next 5 years, I am healthy, wealthy, and wise. I would have been, in the next 5 years, I am at 150 pounds. This is just where I've always wanted to be. I have completed the university degree and etc. You know how, you know what your goals will be. So that is one way of actually having the end in sight. You can also visualize, as Dr. Liba Thomas just mentioned. So you just sit and really imagine what it would be like when you have achieved these goals. See yourself in the position, sitting in the chair, being in the house. If it's a family, what does your husband or your wife look like? How many children are there? You can just visualize all of these. Where are you working? Are you in an office? Are you outdoors? And see yourself actually implementing, see yourself standing on the stage and getting after you're finished, you're getting the applause. See yourself collecting that award, whatever it is that you have in mind. And you can do this on a regular basis because it helps you to have that vision in mind so that you can implement the goals, which are like the milestones to get into that vision. Something that some other persons do is they call it a vision board, where you actually, have different, sometimes it's like a collage of pictures or statements of where you would want to be, and you can actually put a date on it as well. And these pictures, you put them where you can see them every day, and it reminds you of this is where you want to be, and if this is where you want to be, these are the things that you have to do on a regular basis. Some persons, you can also use affirmations, especially where you need the motivation. I can do this. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. I have the ability to do, and can fill in the blank. I'm capable with God's power. I'm capable of doing this. So those are some of the ways of having the end in mind so that you can meet the goals along the way. The goals are really your milestones. So each time you achieve a goal, you're closer and closer to where you want to be.
All right, thank you very much. So from all of what you have been saying, all of you, so I have pulled now. So the choice connects us to the place of desired intention, our values, our beliefs, and then only after we have identified the place of choice can we move on to the point of decision. So which is where we finally consider all options and decide on what to do. And then we also understand that decision is the act or the need for making up one's mind, or the act of just choosing, but then choice now becomes therefore the right or the power or the opportunity to choose. So a number of things are coming out, but again, we don't have as much time to put together all those things. So I'm just reminding everyone to press the like button so that we can get to 100 likes, so that we can actually put together a part 2, because we are right at the end of our program. And I think I'm going to ask, in light of that, Sister Yvonne McClyman Grant to close us off with just a few notes, things to consider. I know I would have wanted to choose us to talk about goals for health and all of those, but we don't have that time. But you might be able to connect the dots for us. But before you do that, what I want to also bring to our attention is that the importance of not losing our imagination, because based on what you have also been saying, all of it, is that our imagination is important, and that is reinforced from we're children, from we're babies. And you're saying, no, we need to think with the end in mind. We need to visualize where we are and where we want to be, visualize ourselves smelling, tasting, feeling that success. And unless and until we can do that, then we're going to be stuck. No. So without further ado, I want to first take this opportunity to say a big thank you to the leadership of the Andrews Memorial District of Churches. I want to say that firstly, and I also want to give a big thank you to all our panelists here, Dr. Judith Leiber Thomas, Sister Marlene Pottinger Giles, Dr. Jerome Stern, Sister Yvonne McClymont Grant, the head of our health ministry here, Dr. Deria Cornwall, and the overall team. I want to publicly say thank you for having given us the opportunity to put together such a program. And I really would love for our audience to just continue to hit that like button, because right now we are not at 100. To be specific, we're at 30. So we have 7 more to go. So think about that for a minute. And I'm just going to turn over now to Sister McClymont Grant, where she can just put all these things together. I know it's a difficult task, but I know that you're capable to put all these things together, and then we'll have the last video, and then we'll close off on that after we have prayed.
I must say that I've enjoyed this session and enjoyed all that was being said. And as we started off, choices. And from before conception, choices have to be made. And right through life, right through every stage of life, choices are important, whether we make them ourselves or others make them for us. But we have, as we grow and as we mature, we have to come to the place where we can make the right choices. And don't beat upon ourselves when sometimes when we make choices that might not be the best choices, but even then we can learn, because from disappointment and from mistakes, we can learn a lot. And it just gives us a sense of awareness. We have to know ourselves, know the people we are working with, know the persons around us, and work on our mental health and our well-being, and be willing to help those who are weak or those who are in various situations where they're not able to make the right choices. We must be mindful of all of this. And it will take us to the place where we get to that sweet spot and success by making the right decisions. And sometimes, as I say, sometimes the decisions might not turn out the way we expected them to, but once we are balanced and we can use them positively, and we know that whatever we do, we must do it with integrity, understanding that God is love and He is always there. And in everything we do, we must glorify God. So I'm just thanking everybody who came as well, and pray that we'll be mindful that learning about choices, we are just barely scratched the surface, and there's much more to learn. And I am just happy about how things went for this evening. And we give God all the glory and all the praise.
This is a new year and a chance to make new health choices. Hi everyone, I'm Nathania Campbell, a member of the Andrews Memorial Real Time and Cornerstone Group. I'm going to share with you briefly 2 health choices I have made since the new year and will continue by God's grace. I strongly believe your health is your wealth. So with that, my first health choice is to change the diet to become a vegan. I am currently a flexitarian. That's someone who primarily has a vegetarian diet, but occasionally eats meat or fish. I started by eliminating red meat from my diet. I have seen where a vegan diet provides an array of health benefits. A healthier diet not only changes the physical appearance and being healthy, it also provides a healthier mind. I have made a health choice about being more intentional in drinking water. I love water, but I sometimes do not drink the required amount daily. I see where it clears acne, It does help your digestive system flush out toxins from the body. This, in turn, will provide your complexion for a healthier and glowing skin. It can also shrink your pores, making them less likely to clog and cause a zit. Don't let troubles of yesterday determine your today. It's up to you today to start making healthier choices, not choices that are just healthy for your body, but healthy for your mind.
All right. I just again want to say a big thank you again to Dr. Daria and her team of experts. And I want to thank you personally, each and every one of you, for taking the time out to contribute your experiences and your expertise to this discussion. It has been a very lively one. And I also want to remind those and to thank those on the live, thank those who are viewing us here now, for actually staying with us through to the end of this program, and to just show you that there's almost 40 likes there. So I want it to go on. Remember, if it goes up to 100, then we're going to definitely be having a part 2. So a big thank you to Sister Daria and her team, and to all the panelists here, as well as the technical team that's doing the behind the scenes work right here, right now. So let us just pray. Most righteous and eternal Father, as we come before your presence, I want to thank you for having given us this opportunity to have this discussion with your people, among your people, and for all the world to see, dear Father. We pray that persons would have been edified for having sat, having listened, and having sent their queries, their comments, and concerns. We know that we did not have enough time to do all these things, dear Father, but you are a God of miracle. You are a God of the impossible. And so we ask that you multiply these efforts so that it will reach untold numbers, dear Father. Continue to bless your people, continue to be glorified in our lives and in all things, dear Father, and help us so that we may edify each other. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. So again, a big thank you, and I want you to continue to tarry with us. Go on, continue to stay on our YouTube page. In the next 5 or so minutes, we should be having the God of Miracles series, where we will be hearing from one of our manservants, Pastor Dwayne Blake. So continue to stay with us, and thank you for having sat with us this long. And until then, let's continue to rack up the likes so that we can actually have a part 2. So I am Kwame Thomas, and I want you to have a blessed rest of the day. Thank you and goodbye.